Dear all, please welcome Marina Larios, Director of Innova Consultancy, for her presentation on Migrapreneurs project goals, activities, and success stories.
I'm not sure where they put it. Maybe she put it in presentations?
Yes.
Maybe? But I made some changes, but maybe... Okay. Oh, great, thank you.
Test.
Do you want me to stay here? Is it better for the audio? Okay. So I'll be happy. So thank you very much. It is really a pleasure to be here in Turkey. I have always have loved this country because it reminds me very much from where I come from. And I am a migrapreneur, and I'm very, very proud to be a migrant. Oh, thank you very much. And I don't think 20 years ago I would have said I was proud to be a migrant. When I left Mexico 20 years ago to go to the UK, I was going to go for a year. One reason, because they told me it was a tropical island, but of course it's not. UK is an island, but doesn't have anything tropical about it, apart from lots of rain and cold. And it turned to be a one-way ticket. Never went back home after 20 years. But of course, when you arrive and you're an international student, you still do not feel different because you hang out with international students. So everybody is from abroad and everybody's sharing the same story. When suddenly I realized I was a migrant is when I started applying for jobs. And I realized that the way you apply for jobs in the UK is very different from Mexico. I didn't have somebody to call to refer me to the boss of the company. I didn't have friends to ask me if those companies were okay. And I found with a lot of jargon in English, like soft skills. And I was like, what is that? Or volunteering experience. So I started looking at jobs, and something that I found interesting now that I look at research, I started finding jobs that were not using my talents, like cleaning jobs, or walking dogs, or working in a supermarket, and obviously other professional jobs. Because even though I already had a degree and had work experience back home, I felt I was in a disadvantage. Like many of our migrants might share the same experience when they arrive to a new country. Because even though when you arrive and you have a lot of experience, nobody knows about it. And of course you have language, and you don't have the cultural understanding of, do you kiss, do you shake hands, Where do I go and apply from here? Now, being a migrant is what has given me success in my career. So something that at first I thought it was a disadvantage, it turned out to be the best thing in my life. And that's why 3 years ago we put this project together in the UK, because it was very close to my heart. And we invited great partners, that you will be listening to them today, that had the same experience working with migrants. And we started to do a lot of research to see if what we were experiencing, my personal journey and the journey of so many of our friends in the UK that are migrants, was very similar. So first of all, what I found and what we found in terms of research is the following. Okay, this one, yeah. Migrants, and highly skilled migrants, more than low-skilled migrants. What I mean by highly skilled migrants is migrants that studied at least a degree. More than low-skilled migrants, we tend to be underemployed. That means that we tend to take jobs that do not use our talent. So when we were doing research, we found, for example, that in the UK, 27.3% of immigrant men were overqualified for the jobs that they were taking compared to British men. And in Turkey, we found out some interesting facts, like a Syrian astronaut who was the only first astronaut in Syria that spent a week in space in 1987, is now teaching at university and working in a house with only 2 bedrooms. Or a lot of high-profile managers in Syria now working in restaurants. In Spain, more than half of immigrants, 56%, are in temporary work, compared with 31% of locals. And a high percentage of these migrants are high-skilled professionals searching for job opportunities. And obviously, it is so much harder when you're a migrant to find a job. And the same thing, very similar in France, where highly skilled migrants tend to be underemployed. So we could find in the UK, France, Spain and Turkey, and worldwide, the same situation. So we knew that we were underemployed, and I could see my own story by the jobs I was trying to get. But then we thought about entrepreneurship. So let's look at entrepreneurship activities in the countries that we are working with. So in Turkey, this is the recent research that we found out. Around 300 million Syrians have found home in Turkey, making it the largest refugee host country worldwide. And in the list of TISC 2015, as of June 2015, the number of registered Syrian companies was already 2,827. So there has been much more entrepreneurial activity as well from migrants arriving into Turkey. Now, interesting things I found as well in the UK is that around 464,000 companies have been started by migrant entrepreneurs, and 40%, this represents 14% of all UK companies. Now, if you look underneath, it's very interesting to see that 17.2% of non-UK nationals start-owned companies. So migrants are starting faster businesses compared to native British people. And the age of entrepreneurs, which I found really interesting in all countries, is that migrants tend to set up companies much younger than the native entrepreneurs. That is a difference of age between 44.3 years old to 52.1 average in the UK. So there is something about young migrants, and we will be talking a little bit about that. Now let's look at France. What I found really interesting is around 8% of new enterprises were created in 2010 in France were founded by migrants. At the point I found that 4% were for migrants outside the EU and 4% for migrants inside the EU. So in Paris, 1 out of 10 enterprises is managed by non-EU migrants. And with a volume, if we think about a volume of 200,000 enterprises created in France, around 15,000 have been created by migrant entrepreneurs. And of course, all these migrants, something that have in common is that they are young, they tend to be more men, and 34% of migrant entrepreneurs have a higher qualification than 27% of native French. And mainly of the migrants that were coming into Paris were from China, Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, and Turkey. So let's look at what happens in Spain. So the largest migrant group in Spain is currently from China. Now, the profile of the Spanish entrepreneur in Spain is a man with a high-level education and around 30 years of age. But the migrant entrepreneur profile age is higher than the Spanish if they come from the European Union, that are around 42 years of age, but lower from the rest of the countries, 35 years of age. So migrants coming outside from the EU tend to set up business when they are much younger. And more than 30% of migrant entrepreneurs operate in commerce, and 19% in food, hospitality, 12% construction, and manufacturing. So that is the overall scenario that we could see. There was so much more to support migrants in entrepreneurship, and that's why the project came into our lives. Now, what was the main aim of the project? It was basically that, to maximize, to enhance the skills of migrants, to give them much more employability skills, and also to create social networks. When we leave our countries, we leave everything. We leave our networks, the people we know, the people we care of, our food, our language. And I think we're quite deprived, if you think about Maslow's hierarchy, of the basic things of Maslow, security. So social networks are really, really important to be able to help entrepreneurs. Obviously, we wanted to find either the right skills to match employers, or also the idea about starting a business. And of course, starting conversations with stakeholders. Now, I love this image because entrepreneurship, like anything in life, is about change, about how courageous we are to make decisions, about how much we know ourselves to say what Armando has told me, who you will be listening to him, why not? Why can't I start a business? And the important thing about letting go and making sure how we make decisions is to get to know ourselves. What has helped us in the past make decisions? Now, certainly for me, if I would have come from a very well-off family with a massive scholarship from the Mexican government, I probably would be back in Mexico because I would have just studied and went back. But I had a massive loan to pay back. So for me, there was no option of failure. I had to find a job. I had to pay my loan. There was no doubt whatsoever that I was going to make it. And I knew it when I left Mexico with my massive debt. But there was something in me that when you really love something, you will make it happen. When you don't, you come up with lots of excuses why there's not the right time to set up a business, or the right time to get another job, or the right time to just go to another country and try your dreams. But when I've studied a lot of entrepreneurship, because I was almost 6 years at the university as a researcher, studying entrepreneurship and equal opportunities, theories are fantastic, but when you start running a business, you realize that what entrepreneurship is about soft skills and hard skills. Now, what we mean by soft skills and hard skills is that it has to be a mix. Now, interesting, because I found much more research that shows that even employers want more soft skills than hard skills, because hard skills are easy to teach. If you don't know how to write a business plan, somebody can teach you. If you don't know a lot of marketing, you can go to open a university and learn. Soft skills are a bit of more of a challenge. How do you make somebody to take more risks? How do you make people to have grit? Interesting, in the latest Harvard research showed that grit, meaning You start something and you finish it, you don't quit. Seeing things from the start to the beginning, to the end, comes from our childhood. So some children will have more grit than others, and it's very much related to parenting. So grit in entrepreneurship is very important because it's hard work. You fail. But is the failure, is the grit that makes you go, I'm going to keep on trying it. So when we put the program together, we knew that we had to do both. We need to have a training program that could cover soft skills and hard skills. Now, I don't know if you have seen this recently, but this is the latest entrepreneurship framework from the European Commission. I think it took them almost 2 years. They brought academics from all over Europe, professors in entrepreneurship. They brought entrepreneurs themselves, policymakers, for 2 years as think tanks to come up with the skills, soft skills, that finally they can say, this is what you need if you want to become an entrepreneur. Soft skills. The only one is interesting that I think it's a hard skill is the financial and economic literacy. But when I was speaking to one of the professors that developed this, he was telling me, it's not if you know how to add, it's know if you can understand and make sense of risk when you look at numbers. And this is 3 points in setting up a business or in terms of entrepreneurship. We start with the purple color, ideas and opportunities, and look at all the skills that you need to have. You need to know how to spot opportunities. You need to be creative. You need to have a vision. You need to value your ideas. Because if you have a vision, but it's not in your heart, you don't value it, it's not going to happen. And of course, ethical and sustainable thinking. Then, of course, comes resources. And resourcefulness is something very important. And this is what we concentrated in a lot of part of our course in Migrapreneurs. That was the self-awareness and self-efficacy. So there's a lot of things I could talk about self-efficacy, but in a nutshell, if you develop self-efficacy, there are a lot of steps to follow, scientifically proved, then you will perform better. So what we wanted to do in our training program is that. Mobilizing resources, mobilizing others. Mobilizing resources and others is your networks. How do you know your neighbors? Do you know what your neighbors do? Do you speak to your neighbors? Have you been in touch with your professor at university? Do you know what his connections are? That it is really what I call smart networking, understanding the resources around you. And then the most important thing is into action. What are you going to do about it? Taking initiative, planning. And very important, and this is more related in terms of gender for women, we're not very good at dealing with risk. You know, we just, if it's very risky, I'm not going to do it. That's why women tend not to go for big loans from banks, but we tend to use our family resources or our savings and learning through experience. Now, that is the framework that the Commission came from about entrepreneurship, and we wanted to put it into practice. Now, something interesting now, I was been doing research about key traits of serial entrepreneurs. Serial entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs who keep on setting up businesses. And what I found it very interesting is that, look at this. This is mainly soft skills, not so much hard skills. Persuasion, how you persuade, is one of the most important things of an entrepreneur. Leadership. And the third one is personal accountability. What I mean like that is that when you're running a business, a lot of things happen to you, and it's so easy to blame others. Oh, she should have told me. Oh, you should have told me that. Oh, I didn't know that. It's everybody's fault. I'm Mexican, they're discriminating me. It's so easy to blame the whole system. You do not understand me, you know. I am really good at my product. You just don't get my product. And personal accountability, instead of like, what is wrong with them? It is, what can I do better to be understood? How do people perceive me? What have I done wrong? How can I go again to that meeting and have a better relationship with that client? And when I have been interviewing entrepreneurs and leaders, they have this personal accountability. They don't blame others. They know they can always improve. So interesting about how do you develop that into a program. I love this quote. An entrepreneur is someone who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way down, because you do not know what will happen next. Now, Obviously, you have the soft skills and hard skills that they talk in entrepreneurship, and we knew that we needed both. Now, of course, hard skills in business is what? A business plan, how to do marketing, social media, if you're going to set up a company limited by guarantee, how you're going to pay tax. All of that is really, really important. But a lot of research shows that if you have strong soft skills, the hard skills are the easy bit. So the Migrapreneurs program covered 2 units, 2 parts. Stage 1 was very much looking at soft skills, finding if entrepreneurship is for me. Now, we developed this because we realized that, at least in the UK, there are a lot of support. When you're ready to set up a business advisor will see you. But I don't think entrepreneurship is for everyone. And I think it's important to go to a course to find out if you have what is needed in the now, because maybe you have a small child and you cannot do that. Or maybe the small child is your motivator for doing it, but you have to have time out to find about idea generation. Have you thought about all the things? My most successful businesses, especially for female entrepreneurship in the UK, have come up from ideas generation for women that we have just looked at their talents. And from their talents, they have come up with really successful business ideas. Because if you can develop a business from your talent, you're going to love it. And we're going to hear some of our migrapreneurs who are running businesses that they're just having a fantastic time. So when we cover the soft skills, we ask people if after doing this program, they were ready to set up a business, then we transfer them to the next stage. Now, this for migrants compared to if I would have done personally, because I was a trainer from this program in the UK, if I would have done this program for native British entrepreneurs, it would have been very different, because what we were looking here is a migrant as a unique selling proposition, as a product. What makes us different? Because when I started the program and I asked everybody in the group, tell me everything that comes to mind when I say migrant, 95% was negative. We don't speak the language, we don't understand, we're taking away jobs, it's hard, they don't take on my qualifications. And I think making that difference is very important. You have to be proud of your difference and exploit your difference. So the jobs I got is because I had the knowledge of Latin America, and the projects I got involved because of my languages and because of the networks I had worldwide, not because of the knowledge I had in the UK, right? Because of course I would never be able to compete, and I know that, on an equal footing with somebody born in the UK, like you would not be able to compete with an equal footing if you would come and work in Mexico. So that difference of being a migrant, it is what will make a difference in getting jobs and setting up businesses. So this was very important. Now, I always say, do you know any successful migrants? And people go like, oh. But then when I say, Steve Jobs from Apple, his parents came from Syria to the United States, and afterwards he was adopted. But if you look at all the top chief executives and the top management layer of Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, they're all 95% international. So when you start relating to that, you go like, oh, okay. And I think that it's important. A lot of our migrants were forgetting to tell me and to tell the group what they started back home. So they will say, hi, I'm Melanie, and I'm from France, and I'm here trying to find a job. Melanie had a PhD in neuroscience. Melanie had already developed a very successful project in the UK in a lab. But after being unemployed for 2 years, after looking after her kids, she had forgotten about it. She was just Melanie from France trying to look for a job. And when we went around the group, no one ever mentioned what they studied. In the group, I have 3 people with PhDs, people with masters, somebody that worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers in Hong Kong. And she was not even mentioning it. So what happens to us after a long time in a new country? We start forgetting that identity of what we were. And it was just like, I am Marina from Mexico trying to find a job. So this program for me was crucial to make them feel proud that they're different, and to use it and to exploit that, and to be able to think about businesses based on their difference. Then we move to the hard skills that, of course, are very important when you set up a business. understand your financial planning, your business development, your marketing. I don't think I would ever stop learning in business. And I've been in business for more than 20 years. There's always something new with tax, with VAT, with planning, with, oh my God, everything is new. So you have to keep on learning. So that is very important. And remember, this program in the UK was led by the University of Sheffield in the north of the UK, very near Manchester. So the management department is very, very good. So this was the aim, that they could co-deliver with some academics and entrepreneurs. Now, this is interesting in terms about self-efficacy. I'm sure you must have seen this before. And can you all see a young person? Put your hands up if you can see a young person. Okay. Can you see an old person? Okay. Now, if you see this image a lot, then you will start seeing both. But there's a young lady, which is her profile. As you can see, it says, if you were looking at me right now, she's like this, so you can see her nose. And then the old lady, which nose is coming this way, her mouth and her chin. Now the brain, very tricky. The brain can only see one at a time. And once you see something, it is hard to switch. But then you develop a skill, because we have neuroplasticity, that's fantastic, our brain can change. And then when you start swapping, you start developing the skill to swapping very quickly. But why I give this example? Because how we see the world is like this. Once I see myself as, I cannot do this, the only thing I can see and can hear is, I can't do it. So if my self-confidence is really low and I hear somebody that says to me, are you okay? Instead of thinking, oh wow, she thinks, she wants to encourage me, I would thinking, I must not look very good. Does that make sense? So whatever, and this is just a visual example, but this is how the brain works. However we feel and whatever we believe, that's what we see, that's what we get. So something about being international is you have that opportunity of spotting a lot of things because everything is new for you, right? So it's a great opportunity to start seeing things differently. So the idea of the program for a lot of our migrants was to, how can you see that from a very different perspective? And we did a lot of exercises to be able to enable that to happen. So in a nutshell, we look at the training requirements, we developed the training program, the training materials, a guide, and all of these tools are available for free, funding by Erasmus Plus, I have to say, which has been fantastic to enable all these migrants to access the program free of charge, which is very important when you're starting a business because that's what you really need, cash. And we have a policy guide on developing entrepreneurial mindsets. I think entrepreneurial mindsets should be in the curriculum of every single school. Every single school should have as part of that curriculum, how do you develop an entrepreneurial mindset? Because they are the future entrepreneurs. And we have a learning hub that we will show you briefly. This is the pilot of our program. We have fantastic people coming to the program. And I think it's a privilege to be able, and I'm sure all our partners agree with me, to be able to allow other people to think about their lives. Now, I feel very, very lucky because I was surrounded by migrants like myself with many more qualifications than me that work really, really hard. And sometimes it's that opportunity that you have that you can think, well, why me? How can I make a difference? Now we have 140 migrants coming to our programs across Europe just for the face-to-face training, but many more through the portal, many more from our multiplier events. So the feedback and the connections has been fantastic, and you will be able to meet them today when they will be able to share their stories with you. So those are different photos from our different groups. Oh, I think this is not going to the next one. No, let me see with this one. No, I think technology is not. Well, doesn't matter. Oh, no, frozen. I wanted to show you a table, but maybe someone from the IT department can kindly Come and help me because the computer went into a panic mode and stopped working. So very quickly, I'll show you a table of self-efficacy when the computer is working again. The evaluation of the program as well that I wanted to show you was fantastic. I think everybody appreciated the program. Now, these programs are not full of magic, I would like to say that. But they are based on a fact that when you have time out to think about your thinking, you can make big choices. We never think why I think like that, or I never have thought about my talents and how can I run a business. And time out, and you can see it with Covey and a lot of the authors worldwide that talk about leadership, creativity, time out to think about why am I doing the things I am doing, why can I set up a business, or why should I not leave my job, are very important part of the lack of self-reflection that we have to be creative. Now, I will read out loud, let me see if this is working again. No, I will read out loud some of the feedback of our participants from the different countries. I attended the session as part of the training defined to explore entrepreneurship. The session has been extremely interesting and gave me the opportunity to see the possibility of creating my own business from the simple and exciting idea that I had so far, but that I didn't have the courage to do. And obviously you will hear some of from our entrepreneurs themselves, so I will skip that slide. So finally, there was a slide that I want to show you that said, think, reflect, and act. We think too much, but we do not do too much. So an important thing about the program was that when people were saying, I want to set up a bakery, one of the things that they have to be accountable is that the following week they had to bring something about their idea. And that gave them a lot of accountability. And the last, thank you, but the last thing I want to say that always helped me is that Eleanor Roosevelt has this beautiful quote that I would like to finish my presentation with, and it said, leap means jump, and the net will appear. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you. I think it's frozen. It's frozen, yeah.